Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar Generations video. In this one I think we have to talk about the sort of state of communication when it comes to Avatar Generations, and does it say anything about the current state of the game? That sort of thing, because I think most people would accept that the game at the moment is not in a particularly strong position. The Azula banner was fantastic and in a way should have been the absolute height of the game. In many ways, like, it was, but the follow-up after that has been nothing effectively. So what is actually happening? What is the problem? And are we actually going to see any improvement? So basically, we have to go back to, I would say, the last live stream. I think that's kind of where this kind of all goes back to a certain extent. That was the last time it felt like communication was actually the way we've had it for the last while. And then after that live stream, it just felt like that was when whatever behind the scenes decisions were made and communication has ground to a complete halt. And we are only getting like the literal bare minimum needed to acknowledge like bugs that are deeply affecting the game. That's the only communication we've had in the last while. We have no clue about like upcoming content for the most part outside of data mining and then the teases that they had given us basically a month ago. So that is the kind of status here, and it should be noted that this is something that we had a problem with when the game first launched publicly. Is that there was a major sense of game is good, has potential, but you are not communicating well enough. We need a roadmap, and we need a roadmap soon. And eventually they got to the point where they, I think, gave us what we wanted, and we got the roadmap, we got the developer live streams, and it felt like the communication was there on like the Discord and stuff like that if you were a part of that. And the game actually had this really, I think, strong relationship between the developers and the community. And it's faded away like a little bit. Even before this, you would say that the communication was beginning to slow down like a little bit, where, you know, the whole roadmap situation, they kind of hadn't posted another one in quite a while. Even on that live stream, it was very notable that like expectations were basically that evening would be when the Azula banner hit. And people were like screaming at them at the end of that live stream, like, hey, what's the release date? What's the release date? This is what you focused the live stream on. How are you not telling us what the release date is on it? And I'm pretty sure they basically alluded to the idea that we're pretty sure it's this week. But the fact that they didn't know for sure was a bit of a problem. Now, it also should be noted at the same time, this is when some bugs were beginning to sort of become more prevalent in the game. And so it felt like one of the things that was kind of happening here was that the Azula update was basically held back because bugs needed to be fixed. The really unfortunate thing, though, was that basically the next update to the game, the one that actually introduced the first stage of guild stuff into the game, seems to be the patch that actually further broke the game to the point where we are still now a month on waiting for the fix. Now, the last communication that we actually have had about the game on the Discord, and this was like the first time that we got communication in like a week or two at all, was that it seems like either, I guess, tonight or tomorrow night, if it's a usual update, we are getting the fix that will fix art effects, the fact that none of them work. Like, that is just a crazy thing to say, that if you use 6 of the same arts on a character, you don't get the bonus effect. It's just, they're all broken in the game at the moment. Similarly, the one feature of guilds that is actually in the game right now, that being that if most of your guild like signs in effectively for the day, you get a bonus of like, instead of getting 8 every day, you get 8 plus up to like 20 something or whatever. None of that's been working. Everyone has only gotten 8, and then the preemptive, because they knew it was broken, compensation they gave everyone at the start. So you can say they acknowledge here there will be compensation with this update, because everyone is down. Everyone who's part of a guild is down probably 200 to 300 guild coins. So I expect that that's what we're going to be getting here as part of that. But again, They said that with the guild update, that the first stage would be here, but then the next stage would follow within the same month, like a week or two later. And it doesn't seem like that's on the horizon like anytime soon, or at least the communication has been so bad, it doesn't seem like it's coming particularly soon. And that's when all of the actual features of guilds is really coming into play. The raid bosses, we really want to see that get introduced so we can actually do something as part of the raids, because guilds basically mean next to nothing in the game right now, with the main feature broken, of course. And then they just teased the idea that there is another fix update coming to fix a lot of other bugs, and the fact that like the game badly needs a tuning patch because the meta is so stale in the arena, and with a lot of the kind of combat stuff broken and characters have bugs, it's just not a fun experience, because if you're in any way highly ranked, you are just coming across the same 3 or 4 teams, and it's just this thing of like, I don't want to fight those teams, I don't want to fight that team. And it's so difficult to actually make any progress. It just doesn't feel particularly fun. Like, a lot of the characters that are new, that come into the game, just seem completely overdone. Whether it be their kind of abilities themselves, their abilities in combination with the team that they're made for, or the relics that are meant to be used with them. There's just some sense of something being completely overpowered, and it just compiling on top of itself, and you know, there's the power creep, and the stuff from before is just being left behind. So there's a massive need for a major kind of fix update. And this is what I just like to know, is like, is that what's happening right now in the game? Are they basically deciding that we are basically delaying new content being added to the game to really focus on getting the game back to a stable point? Is that what we are actually trying to do here? And once we have the game in a stable point where everything works, the features that are in the game for guilds right now works, then the proper second stage of guild updates will come in, and we'll get back to adding in extra content. But they haven't specifically said that that is actually what is happening. Because you'll notice here, it doesn't mention anything about actual new content, what's coming next. Now, we know roughly an idea about what is coming next from a combination of what they said on live streams, again, a month ago, and from data mining, which is actually the only way to really stay up to date on the game these days. So we, of course, know the next 2 of the upcoming content features will be the Dojo Master new scenario, which will be a new location on the map, and we'll introduce the new character Taowu, who's an enemy of the Dojo Master. So we're expecting that. That probably is maybe the next piece of content, if I was to guess, but I just don't know. Then they've teased it for a few months in a row now. We've actually known about it for quite a while. The Kyoshi era content with the new Airbender characters and the anti Dao Fei kind of mercenary organization. That scenario looks like it's coming into the game. So it does look like we're getting a Kyoshi new scenario before we're getting the Rise of Kyoshi Part 2. I don't think they've properly teased that yet, even though data mining wise, some of that stuff is beginning to sort of come into play. So it's unclear about exactly when all of this stuff is actually happening. So data mining also suggests that Korra stuff is in the near future at some point. Again, they did initially tease it that months ago at this point, but that it should be before the end of the year. That might be pushed back, but that does seem to be the case. The next event quest, which is basically it should be the follow-up to the Azula one, should be a Long Feng / Dai Li update that should have those characters get introduced, which, should be fun. But the big thing I'm wondering is, when's the next new banner for normal tickets going to be? It's been a very long time since the last one. I'm pretty sure the last one was the Warden, wasn't it? Because it's going all the way back to the Imprisoned update. I think was the last time we had a full-on release of like a bunch of new characters in a row as like a proper like event. Because if you just look on the website, like things haven't been really updated since, you know, the introduction of like event quests, which haven't been in addition to new content. They've basically been sort of almost the replacement for content. Whereas I think the ideal situation is we get this new content in different timelines as well. So like the patch 1.13 is the last patch note stuff they put up on the website. And again, it's from over a month ago at this point. Now, there's some of this kind of patch note stuff is on the Discord if you want to actually see some of it. That is a little bit more up to date. But it speaks to the idea of whatever's happened behind the scenes, like whatever team they had running the website is gone. For whatever reason. Of course, there's not really any moderators for the most part on the Discord. I think the bare minimum is being done to keep that going without it turning into a disaster zone. And we just don't know what the situation is. Because again, that's what seems to have happened. Some of the known moderators have just left. They seem to just say one day that this is going to be our last post for ever, basically. We can't talk to you guys anymore. New moderators are on the way. We haven't seen those new moderators. So it seems like, is this just like a month and a bit of nothing, and then things will get back to normal? But it doesn't seem like there's that much, you know, progress being made. Because again, if you're not on the Discord or aware of like what's actually happening kind of data mine wise and stuff like that, if you just play the game, it feels like the game is dying. But I don't think the situation is actually that dire. But it comes across that way because the communication is so bad at the moment. And this is the situation. We have to more or less fight in a way as a community to get the communication up to this level. And then they dropped from being at a really high level of communication to nothing. You can't just do that this suddenly. And something needs to change. And this is where I'm hoping, I really, really hope, again, bring this up again, that when they talk about the idea of this, you know, we're getting a smaller kind of bug fix update today or tomorrow, I guess, but then they're talking about that we'll get information on the bigger, you know, tuning changes and stuff like that, the next proper patch, I guess, that's also this week. So I'm hoping either today or tomorrow we actually do get that and communication does start to get back to normal, because I do think a roadmap is super important for this game. It is really, really needed, because it hasn't, like, it's been a very long time since we had any progress, because it's getting to the point where it was a really long time ago when the Imprisoned update came to the game. And again, we're celebrating a year of the game since the beta. And we're only on episode 6. And keep in mind, the beta launched basically with the first, like, 2-3 episodes. So, effectively, since the initial launch content of the game, there's really only been 3 episodes of Avatar actually added into the game. And I think that's kind of insane. That is how slow the pace is. And they actually haven't yet teased episode 7 or 8 content yet, which I think is just crazy. Similarly, like I said earlier, they also haven't properly teased Rise of Kyoshi Part 2 content. Now again, data mining, there is a couple of characters that I think are clearly meant to be from the next actual, like, novelization adaptation stuff. But they haven't said anything about that yet. So what's kind of happening here? They said a while ago that there is going to be an anniversary event for the actual kind of public launch of the game, which I think is like, what, January? So that is a few months away, and it feels like if they don't nail that, if they don't get back on track before then, I think there is a problem developing with the game. And this is where, like, you hit a peak. I think the peak, in a way, with this game was the Rise of Kyoshi update. I think 100% that brought in a lot of people. I'm sure maybe in some ways the Azula banner has maybe been probably the most popular individual banner in the game. But I think in terms of content, the actual addition of timelines is the most, like, significant addition to the game. And so I do think, like, when Korra does get introduced into the game, it is going to be a huge thing, but they need to get the rollout of content back on track, and they need to have a regular cadence of content. Whereas right now it feels like a coin flip every week about if there is going to be nothing, if we're going to get the bare minimum stuff like, ooh look, it's just challenges to do stuff in the arena, and that's really all there is. Here's a banner that's like a repeat from like 6 months ago. Or are we just going to get surprised with, oh yeah, new content this week, we just didn't tell you about it or tease it ahead of time? And that's kind of the other part of it here, is that it seems like the whole PR thing of like, I would occasionally get emails hyping up kind of new stuff, it seems like that's done. Based on what I think other people who also get contacted have said to me, they seem to be aware that like the contract with that PR company has kind of run out. So that doesn't seem to be something that's maybe happening anymore. And that's also not great, because it that speaks to the idea of like, whoa, what's happening here? Are you choosing to not market the game anymore, or what? Because there really isn't that much kind of talk about kind of a lot of stuff here. And you can see, just looking through the website again, they haven't really added much in at all. Like this, I think, website had potential for this game to really have some interesting stuff to it, but it's been left for like a lot of fan run stuff to really kind of get the proper information of the game. Like bios and characters, like I think I've been asking for this for ages, of like just stuff like this, of like put the new characters in here, the Kyoshi characters in here on the website, and really make it clear what it is. But now you can see like, if I get this out of the way, nothing in the events. It hasn't been updated in over a month, and it just is what's happening, what is happening to the game. And it seems like, on a technical level, because we don't understand the underlying makeup of like what's actually happening with the company behind the scenes, it seems like they're just going through this kind of transition where they're kind of getting new people in for the kind of more community facing roles. But the transition has happened at the worst time possible. Like you shouldn't hit the hype of like your 1 year beta anniversary festival, and this is where communication grinds to a halt. You shouldn't hit your most hyped banner ever, have it be like the first real, I would say, first proper piece of content that's been delayed in quite a while. And this is where your lack of communications starts, basically, is with the most hyped banner imaginable, and you just don't have anything to say about it. That's not good. And then the fact that there really hasn't been a follow-up to the Azula update as well. That's probably been the biggest thing, is that it's like amazing first year and we'll go on from here, but we don't know what the first update is after 1 year of the game. That shouldn't be the case. So there are problems, and I think a lot of these problems were helped by the fact that there was pretty strong communication after the initial couple of months, and things were great. Like the developer live streams, I think everyone loved seeing them. The fact that it felt like say Andrew and stuff like that, the fact that he was doing those kind of out of nowhere, almost like random Instagram lives, that was helping. He was teasing stuff there. The other moderators were like teasing stuff in the Discord. Things were hitting a really nice point, but now it has gone back to being nothing except frustration. And you can see this because if you look in the Discord and like the game feedback section, I think up until like maybe I think White Lotus Nick posted like once or twice in response to people, it just felt like people in the game feedback were like basically talking to a wall. And to go from it feeling like a lot of this stuff, if you said something in there, would be acknowledged, to now it's just there are major problems with the game that need to be addressed, and it's just turning into this whole thing of just like it's this list, and then you're waiting weeks and weeks and weeks, and they acknowledge like one known issue, and then there's all this other stuff in the feedback that's like, hey, what about this stuff? because there's still so much that needs to change. Because like in terms of kind of quality of life stuff, we know that there's some sort of big inventory kind of update that needs to happen. I know that's been a huge thing that has just held me back from like maybe playing as much as I kind of wanted to the last while. Is just that I am so full on arts, and I really can't afford in terms of gold to expand my inventory because it's way too expensive. And then it just is completely like inefficient, the system that's actually in place for that. So that's definitely a problem. But like I said, to kind of finish this off, I think they just need to like talk about what's upcoming into the game. I get it, you might be in a little bit of a situation where because your plans for like initially when you had hoped to launch like the full extent of guilds and stuff like that, you maybe are behind now because the game was really hit by some, like the game is quite affected by bugs at the moment, to the point where quite a lot of stuff doesn't work. So I get there being a little bit of a delay here while that gets sorted out, but you can't just drop communication. I just think when it comes to stuff like this and you're managing a community, the worst thing you can do is just drop communication to nothing. And that's exactly what they've done. And I hope that they fix this, because it kind of is hard to, in a way, cover the game when they're not doing these teases, because all of a sudden it's just like, should I be ready to go in terms of like making videos tonight when I just don't have a clue if there's actually going to be an update? And then if there is an update, is it literally just these 2 bug fixes? Which at that point, like, there's no point talking about that really, apart from like, hey, they fixed 2 of the obvious things. But like, is it just bug fixes? Like, is there new content? What's next? When's the next timeline thing? When's the next new timeline being introduced? Cora, it's a rough situation here, and I just feel the game has kind of been in a little bit of a kind of free fall since I'd probably say the Imprisoned update, because that I think introduced quite a few bugs. It was the last significant new piece of content we got. And other than that, like the event quests, I would say have been interesting, but not as a main piece of content. Like we need the other stuff more than I think we need new event quests. So I'm still interested by this game, and I hope they fix it and get all these bugs out of the way and introduce all the features that we need. But it is getting to the point where it's just like, you've got to deliver. Like, it's just as simple as that. Like, there has to be better communication. You have to actually put out some content. What's happened is kind of really the question here. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on this. Have you been following kind of the changes that have sort of been happening with Avatar Generations, sort of behind the scenes on the Discord? What do you think is happening here? Do you think this is a signal that maybe there is something more kind of serious wrong with the game? Or is it just a kind of behind the scenes business kind of job roles changing, and they're struggling with the transition a little bit while trying to keep a live service game going? Is it as simple as that? Who knows? But yeah, that has been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.